Hello gamers! Today we are back with a very special video. I'm joined for the first time ever, I think, in my game room with another person. Yep. So this is a big moment. And this is Andy, Video Game Experiment here on YouTube. And he's joining me today with something amazing. He came across sort of a holy grail through collecting, and he's got the game here, and we'll be discussing that. So what do you have for us today?
Today I have PGA Tour Golf 2 for the Sega Genesis.
Wow, I've never seen a sports game for the Genesis.
It's quite a find.
Wow.
No, seriously, that one's junk. I have PGA Tour Golf 2 for the Sega Heartbeat, which was an exercise system for the Sega Genesis. It was kind of like a variant of the Genesis that you hooked up different sensors for your heart rate, and the game recognized it and did different things. Thing about this, the only known copy of any game that actually released with that was the bundle that came with Outback Joey, which is kind of the top holy grail of Sega Genesis collecting. The value of that has just skyrocketed in the last few years. There's probably only about 1,000 out there that we know of.
And that was only North America, right?
And that was what was produced. So who knows what's around now?
Right.
And later on, a couple years after that, they were going to release a few more games. And PGA Tour Golf 2 was going to be one of those games. It's so rare that we don't actually know if it came out or not. There's no articles, nothing, no information online about an actual release for that, other than it was planned. A few articles say it was coming soon, but again, we don't know if it actually came out or not.
Yeah, that's nuts. And you got this through a lot of games you purchased, but like, what tipped you off that you had something unique here? I mean, in the sea of Genesis sports games, how would you pick this one up?
That's exactly it. I bought this lot of games. This was probably back in April. And you go through every system, you go through the GameCube stuff, and that's the higher priority stuff to get listed and everything like that. The Sega Genesis sports games, they get kicked in a bucket and they sit there for months before you actually, have the time to go through them.
Because you run a video game selling website, right, videogameexperiment.com.
Right.
So you see a lot of inventory cycle through.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of this stuff, like Sega Genesis games, not a big seller, so they kind of get ignored. But on a lazy Sunday, when you have nothing better to do, that's what you end up reaching for. So you're digging through all these Sega sports games. You're listing Madden 95, Madden 95, sometimes Madden 96. A lot of NHL 94s, which is a great game.
Yeah, it is a good game, yeah.
But nonetheless, probably the most common game out there almost. So when I saw this, PGA Tour 2, I just glanced at it. Oh, it's just PGA Tour.
Sure.
No big deal. Then I saw the Heartbeat logo, and then something went in my brain because I knew the Outback Joey was tied to that Heartbeat. I still thought that this was a pretty common game. I thought the Outback Joey was the rare one.
Sure.
But more research, come to find out, this actually never came out.
Yeah, because Outback Joey is the only known retail release, and that was bundled with the system.
Yep, exactly. So it's quite a find. Trying to get more information from different collectors, different Sega experts out there. Slowly gathering bits and pieces together, but from what we've gathered, this is probably a prototype that was made for some sort of demo situation. I don't know, a trade show, maybe in store where they were planning to do a test market. Who knows? So that kind of rules out that the game actually came out. We still don't know, but as far as we know, it still has not come out. It was never released. So this is a prototype, and you can kind of tell the outer cover here, the artwork is like an inkjet printed cover. It's pretty hard to make that up. I mean, it's got the logo and everything. I suppose you could Photoshop it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and you notice it's not even cut quite to the right length. It's a little bit short.
Exactly. It's a little bit short there. It's pretty blurry on the back there. One interesting note, on this whole thing, instructions are included. There's a sticker on there. There's almost zero mention of EA Sports or anything on this whole game. The only thing on the very back, on the bottom, it says registered trademarks permission EA Sports 1995.
Yeah.
So
well, that's what got me, because you would assume with any sports game on the Genesis that it would have had the EA cartridge, and this one does not. It's a standard Genesis cartridge, which is really odd in itself.
Most EA games have the yellow tab on this, like a taller cartridge with the yellow tab.
Yeah.
This one does not. Maybe I've never actually seen an EA prototype. Maybe they still do that in the standard cases instead of their branded ones. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I know you mentioned like on the standard PGA Tour 2, the release date is 1992, but you said there's a release or a date on this of 94.
Yep, it says copyright 1994 right on the instructions there. So, yeah, they've been sitting on this for a couple years.
Trying to get it to market.
Trying to get it to probably even work with the system they were doing, honestly.
Trying to get someone to buy the system that they wanted to sell it for.
Yeah, exactly. The Heartbeat was kind of in the same league as like the Extertainment system and all of that, and I think it was probably way far behind them even, so I'm surprised that they were even thinking about releasing other games in a second wave outside of Outback Joey.
Yeah. When we did open the card up, and you can definitely tell it looks, not that either of us are experts, I guess, but we know enough to kind of be able to tell like a prototype cartridge with the bigger ROM chips. Yeah. I've got some photos of that I'll show on screen, but then there was no save state battery at all.
No.
So just some interesting things. It's definitely, like you said, it feels heavier than a standard Genesis card for sure.
Yeah.
So that's all really cool. And you've gotten a little bit of feedback from the community in like the few days you've been trying to research this.
Right. There's definitely a lot of people that are really interested in this uncovering, but there's also not a lot of interest in the product itself.
Sure.
It's that rare, that kind of unknown, that there's not a lot of interest, where something like stadium events is massively interest.
A little bit more mainstream.
Obviously much more rare, but nobody's even looking for something like this.
Right, because I mean that's a hardcore market. Obviously there's Genesis fans and collectors, but someone to even, like, I had never even heard of the Heartbeat until you mentioned it. So more just average to casual collector, you're never going to have heard of this system, would want to plunk down the, I assume, thousands it would cost to get a Heartbeat.
Right.
And you said the game, the one known, Outback Joey, is like a $2,000 game?
Yeah, I think the last copy was pretty rough shape. It sold for, I think, around $2,000 on eBay. So I think there's one up there right now. It's probably the same one, actually. It looks pretty beat up. That one's, buy it now for $3,700. So that's a little insane for Outback Joey. I don't know if this is in the same class, just because Outback Joey is probably considered a licensed retail release. So, anybody who's going for a complete set, you kind of have to include that one, where this is more like a prototype. And depending on the prototype, I mean, it is PGA Tour Golf too. It's got some extra stuff in it. For example, there was some promotional material for NHL PA 93 that they were also going to do for this system.
Sure.
But they replaced all the EA logos, like on the center ice of the hockey rink. They replaced EA Sports with Heartbeat. Okay. And there's a lot of custom code. We read the instructions earlier here.
Yeah, they're pretty in-depth.
Yeah. just like a printout of a piece of paper here. But it does go into depth a little bit about how the heart rate monitor affects how you're playing the game. Mainly if your heart rate's beating too fast, the swing meter is a little bit more erratic, where if you're going too slow, it's probably a lot harder to aim, I would imagine. So there's not a lot of code that they're changing in this. It's basically probably the same EA Sports game. It's
just a sprite swap. I'm sure they would plan on licensing it somehow through EA.
Yep.
Which is just kind of crazy to think about, because you don't see that. I mean, EA has always been the powerhouse. They're not the one to license out their, their franchises.
I've never heard of EA making their own game and then licensing it to somebody else, put their name on it. It's just unreal to me.
Yeah. But what I think is amazing is like you've got a cartridge for a niche variant of a system. So that in itself is already incredibly rare. But I mean, this might be one of a handful of actual physical cartridges, prototype or not, that exist for this thing.
Right.
Which, you know, whether or not this thing's worth a fortune or not, I mean, just the rarity of that is insane. And then Andy and I were talking, it's almost impossible that it ended up in the area that we live, upper Midwest, Minnesota, North Dakota. It's not like the video game industry is built up anywhere around us. You would think something like the Heartbeat, I would assume, probably didn't go national. It's probably test markets ever only. I mean, if there's 1,000 known manufactured units. So how something like this would end up in our area, because you did pick it up out of Minnesota in a lot.
Yep.
It's just incredible.
Yeah, the Heartbeat as a company was based out of Connecticut. I'm sure they had trade shows that they went to and tried to sell this stuff to. But yeah, exactly. Yeah, 1,000 systems, you have to spread those out to how many different places to sell. Very few of those actually probably even made it into Minnesota.
Yeah.
So why would they even be trying to sell this game to anybody around here? You know?
Yeah, it's sort of amazing. And it sort of, I guess, also explains, well, the fact that it's a sports game in the Genesis explains why it remained hidden for so long. But, you know, definitely in our area, it probably would have taken a lot longer to come to light. I mean, it's probably sat in somebody's basement for who knows how long until it came out with the Genesis lot, and then you ended up getting it in your collection.
Yeah, and I would say I know a little bit about games, and it sat in that bin by itself with all the other crappy sports games.
Yeah.
So it happens to the best of us, I guess.
But it's one of those amazing stories that, as tough as game hunting can be now, and I'm guilty of it too, I get frustrated and I have a hard time going out and finding deals. The prices are insane. But this is exactly, you know, one of those stories, and this is why you keep on looking, you keep on hunting, because in your backyard or in your house in a bin could be just this complete holy grail one-off amazing find that it's incredible, kind of inspiring to keep you and other collectors looking, because things like this do still come up.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, and I guess you have to check every sports game that you see now.
Yeah, I will.
Every single pile.
I'm going to waste so much time now at thrift stores and pawn shops going through the sports titles for the Genesis.
Yeah.
Might be worth it.
Probably not.
No. So yeah, you're going to get this thing. It sounds like now word out. You're digging a little bit, and you're going to be taking this down to the Portland Retro Gaming Expo when we're going to be heading out there in a month.
Yep. Try and get some experts to have some hands-on with it, see what they think. Give me a little bit more insight on this copy to see, maybe trace down a little bit more history on it.
Yeah, that's the thing too, is you popped it in to a Genesis and it will load up the Sega logo, but it won't progress past that, which you found out is common for any Heartbeat game. Well, the only other known Heartbeat game.
Right. Right after the license by Sega bit, we believe that it's checking for the heart rate sensors, and it just doesn't go any farther if it's not there. Yep. That is confirmed on Outback Joey, that's the way it works. So in order for me to actually know if this game even works, I got to find somebody with a Heartbeat.
Yeah. Well, and there's 1,000 of them out there somewhere. It can't be that hard, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess we'll see how that goes in Portland. I'm sure I'll have updates, and possibly they'll be showing up somewhere else on YouTube. But if anyone's watching this and you know somebody or think you know somebody who might know, or we can get more info on this, a fellow collector, definitely share the video, leave a comment. Let's get the word out there and see if we can't find a little bit more detail than we have now.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, Andy.
Yeah.
Appreciate you stopping by. We'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, it was good.
And guys, as always, I'll talk to you next time.